with me today, I have Monica Moaning, and Monica is Building Freedom Ohio's onboarding chairperson for the Akron Canton chapter. And she's also the reentry liaison over at South Street Ministries. I have been fortunate enough to link up with Monica. I'm starting to do, I know I had like Shantae and Lamar on here. I've been in contact with Shantae. I'm hoping here in the very near future to be able to do more work with Building Freedom Ohio and the reentry portions of Stark and Summit County with Shantae, Monica, and Lamar. So guys, real quick before we get started, I want to thank each and every one of you for checking us out across the social media on the YouTube page. The YouTube page seems to be doing pretty well these days. That's where I'm getting the most traction. That's where my analytics are actually showing progress. So I want to encourage each and every one of you, if you're watching this and if you're tuning in on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow, leave some comments, leave some reviews. All that does is push us up in the feed, and it gives us an opportunity to be seen by more people, to help more people. And that's the whole goal of everything. If you haven't checked this out yet, we do have a Facebook page. It is the Junglecast on Facebook.com. Obviously, we are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on like all of them, Amazon. So I encourage you guys to keep checking us out. I appreciate all of the likes and follows and subscribes. And I also want to give a quick thank you to all my guests who have come on and put themselves in the hot seat and shared their experiences. So, all right, Monica, let's dive into this. So, Monica Moaning.
Said all those things, and I sound real professional, but really, I'm just a community member that's been through some shit.
Hey, you know what though? That's okay, because it's you know what? I'm a former drug addict who drives a truck who's just trying to make a difference. So I
just found some people that needed some shit, and I've been through it. So here we are. Like,
yeah.
You said that. I was like,
hey, it looks good on paper, and that's all that matters.
Right.
So
right.
So all right, real quick, let's dive into. So you've been to prison. You obviously had, I believe it was an issue with substance abuse. I don't know what took you to prison, to be honest with you. You and I were kind of talking beforehand, and I told you, I said, I don't know a whole lot about you. We have quite a few mutual friends. So go ahead and just introduce yourself, kind of let everybody know where you come from, what maybe growing up was like real quick, and get into the gritty stuff.
So again, my name's Monica. I'm a community member in Akron, Ohio that's been through some shit. I want to help my community. I feel like we're all kind of united by trauma bonds, unfortunately. No matter what you've been through, we've all got similar emotions. We don't have the same story, but we've all felt the same type of shit. So I just want to be able to pass that on to my community. Growing up, I grew up in Southern Ohio in Marietta. So from the outside, my life looked pretty privileged, pretty blessed. Inside my home, it was not so much that. There was a lot of trauma and abuse and secretive, just, what stays in this house or what happens in this house stays in this house. Like, we had a no snitching policy in my community as well. Like, I grew up, we don't talk about what goes on here. So as soon as I could get away from that, my mom had moved to Akron right before the summer right before my freshman year. And I moved from Marietta, Ohio to Cole Avenue in Beardsley, right in the heart of the South Side in Akron. And shortly after that, my mom was in an accident with my stepfather who was killed. And she went into a dark place. It was either learn to support myself and my sister and my mom, or, go into the system. And at 15, that wasn't an option, not where I lived. There were too many people that were getting money and taking care of themselves. So I discovered that I had a real knack for sales at a young age. And being that my parents were both alcoholics, my mom was an alcoholic drug addict. I did not have so much of a substance use issue. I had more of a mental health issue. I was using all of the tools that I had created, detachment and all of these things that I had gathered from being a child to cut myself off from the world, literally.
So you were in the system at 15 years old then?
No, I started selling narcotics to stay out of the system at 15.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
not
that was
ignoring you. I'm trying to get this going on. I think I've almost got it on Facebook, but I promise I'm not ignoring you.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I'm kind of rambling anyway. I don't normally talk about my childhood, but yeah, so there was just a lot of trauma, and I started selling drugs, and I was good at it. And then I had a kid at 17, and it was survival. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and said, "Oh, I'm just going to sell drugs today." It was literally, me and my sister are going to end up in the system, or I'm going to learn how to take care of us and pay this light bill because we can't have no gas and no lights.
Yeah. How old is your sister then?
She's 2 years younger than me. She was 13 at the time.
Okay.
But she's the baby, like my little sister. I've always been the older, protective, older sibling.
Was Dad around? Dad not in the picture, or?
Dad was in the picture full time. I actually was raised in Marietta by my dad and my stepmother. My mom was not in the picture. And then when I turned 13, she came back into the picture and we moved here.
Okay.
After that, my dad would have been involved a whole lot more had I not been making decisions that I knew he wouldn't have been supportive of. So being that he was 2 hours away and not here, it made it real easy to keep shit from him and only let him know what I wanted him to know. To be honest, his opinion throughout my life is probably one of the only ones that ever made a whole lot of difference to me. So I tried to keep him real secluded from what was really going on in my life at that time.
So then he's currently not in your life then either?
Actually, I just spoke to him on Father's Day for the first time.
Oh, so I saw your post on Facebook that you guys had a real long, nice conversation. So what's that like being able to bridge that gap and have your dad back momentarily or currently to have a conversation?
Forever. My pride's not ever going to let that happen. So fast forward, I sold drugs for 20 years, raised my kids, and went to prison at 36. My dad was very disappointed. He had a lot going on in our community growing up, so people knew us. When I got in trouble, my picture was all over the news. Things were not good. I was very embarrassed, and I knew he was disappointed. So I never reached out and tried to bridge that gap. I just kept putting it off. My pride was in the way. So I'd been saying, like, I'm going to call him. And then on Father's Day, I just texted him, like, "Hey, Dad, it's me. Happy Father's Day." And he called me. And when he called me, he's like, "Mon." And nobody calls me Mon but my dad. So he's like, "Mon?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, it's me." And he just started crying. And he's like, "I miss you. Like, you're my daughter. I love you. Like, I know we've been through some shit, but I love you." Like, and it felt good for real. Like, it hurt to know that I hurt him by, like, staying distant and not keeping in touch and, like, excluding him. But like I told him, this is the first time in my life where I really feel like I'm doing something he can be proud of.
Yeah.
So I wanted to call and share with him, like, what I'm doing. And I think that kind of hurt his feelings because as a dad, like, as a parent, we're proud of our kids for everything. Like, yeah, you make some dumbass choices, but you're my kid. I'm proud of you. Like, and I'd never, like, felt that or heard that because I'd never been doing shit that he could have been proud of, I didn't think. But to hear him say that, like, "I've always been proud of you," like that, it changed a lot.
No, I'll tell you. So obviously, as well, when you're out there and when you're making bad choices, I had more pride about myself and I was more confident. I wasn't, we're not going to call it confidence. I was a cocky asshole.
I was an arrogant person.
I was arrogant as fuck. I knew the right way. I was a hustler. I was a gangster. And I'm like, now that I'm 41 years old, I look back and I'm like, you were a fucking dumbass. Like,
you were a stupid mother. Yes. You were a fucking moron. I look at all the time and I just look at my kids like, bro, please don't make something, like, don't do
well, and that's also the beauty of coming where we come from, because I can look at my kids now and my kids have not made the best choices, but they're not making the choices that I made back in the day. But I can sit back and kind of and have conversations with them. I was fortunate enough to take Chris to dinner last night and go to a comedy show down at the Hall of Fame, and the older he's getting, the easier it is for him and I to have conversations. And I'll tell you, though, My little girl, I love my son to death. My son has like blown me away as far as the strides and accomplishments that he's making. Going to college.
That's the one that's got the basketball stuff going on, right?
Yeah, full ride down at Shawnee State.
Yeah.
I just ran into one of his coaches at the gym this morning, and I was just glowing from ear to ear talking about him. My daughter gave me a run for my money a little bit when she was a little younger. There was some bullshit, but you're absolutely right. And I've preached this several times to people, you know, that's my little girl. I don't care what she does. And coming from your dad's standpoint, being a father of a little girl, she could make all the bullshit, stupid hood rat choices in the world. But the day, and I'll walk by her side through all of it, but the day she shields me and walks away from me is the day that I'll be completely broken, because it's in your DNA as a man and as a father to want to be present for your daughter. And if you're not, and it's your choice, you're just I'm just going to say you're a piece of shit like that. Absolutely. I don't understand how somebody could throw that bond away. But I've preached several times to in fact, I'm talking to somebody now. You have to try and mend the relationships. If your family relationships are mendable, in order for you to be successful, and I'm not talking in sobriety, I'm talking in life, because you're going to constantly have that stigma on your shoulders that you are a convicted felon, that society tells you you're not shit. And the best way to overcome that on the front end, in my perspective, is to try and mend all your relationships with your family, with your kids, your mom, your dad, your siblings. That's where I've gotten the most. That's where I've gotten the most of my confidence nowadays and my pride. So, now that my rant's over, because it's your podcast.
It's fine.
So, okay. So you're selling narcotics, and I'm assuming at some point you get locked up, and that's what you get locked up for. What was your initial charge? What were your initial charges, and what kind of time did you get?
At 36 years old, I caught felony 2s and 3s, drug trafficking, aggravated possessions, weapons under disability from one felony that I had gotten at 18 for tampering with evidence because I threw some shit out the window. So I ended up with the weapons under disability, which for anyone who doesn't know, even though I was not using my gun in the commission of a crime, it is still a violent crime. Yeah. So that is, you cannot go get jobs with the weapons under disability. But, yeah, and I went at the very beginning of COVID, and I spent 10 months in a cell in Stark County Jail by myself. And I found whatever Monica, I found God, whatever crack in the wall I could talk to, I found, and I talked myself through some shit.
I'll tell you, man, those jail cell days and nights, man, it will, and especially 9 times out of 10, I mean, if you were trafficking narcotics, you were probably drying out, you were probably sobering up. That's probably, going to prison wasn't bad for me. I don't know about you. Going to prison wasn't bad for me because did I lose you? Oh, you're back. You're cutting.
Oh yeah, my phone rang. My bad.
Oh no, you're good. No, I don't know if it was the same for you, but like the initial getting locked up, having the detox in a cell by yourself and being faced with all the bullshit, the impending sentence that you know you're going to get, that was the hardest time of my whole bid. But I don't know.
It's crazy because I didn't believe any of that was going to happen to me.
Oh, really?
I didn't believe I was going to be in that much trouble. I just knew I had money put up. I'm about to pay a bond. I'm about to get a lawyer, and I'm about to go and drag this shit out for a couple of years. Yeah. Never in a million years did I think it was going to go the way that it went, and I was not getting out until 3 years later.
I knew I wasn't getting out. They had me suspected of 80-some burglaries in Portage County.
Yeah, no.
I was the second they caught me, I was like, let's go to jail, guys.
Yeah, no, I just thought it's drugs. I'll go in here. I'll play a drug addict. I'll get rehab. They're going to let me go home. I got 2 kids. Yeah. I'm a white woman.
Right.
Let's be real. That's the privilege that I lived with. And then that was kind of an eye-opening experience. The judge was like, absolutely not. Yeah. You're not going home. But,
so how much? Oh, go ahead.
Prison, I got 2.5 years total. I ended up, some shit happened with the attorney and some money, and you know how the system works. And I ended up only getting 2.5 years. Prison was probably the second most life-changing experience for the positive in my life.
Real
The
quick,
first
what
being-
what was your parent institution? Where were you sentenced to?
I spent 11 months at Marysville and 11 months at Northeast.
Okay.
Prison was a positive experience for me. I know that sounds wild, but I needed prison. Like I said, I started working on myself in the county because I didn't have anybody to talk to but the cracks in the wall. And when I got to Marysville, I was still doing bullshit, though. I was still hustling. I was still sending money home. I was still taking care of people. Like, it was just like being in the hood. I just couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And I sat down one day and I was like, man, what the fuck are you doing? Like, bro, you're going to be the same statistic that your daughter has seen repeatedly. Like, is that what you want? You want to go home and come back to prison because you ain't learning shit. Like, you still in here hustling, stat, whatever you doing. Like, it's too much. Randomly, they sent me to Northeast. I wasn't supposed to go there. They were not even accepting girls because of COVID. Somehow I ended up on like the second ride out of Marysville. When I got there, it was a completely different situation. There was only like 125 girls on the compound, and it was a reintegration center. The staff were not disrespectful. They wanted to see us succeed. Like, it was still COVID, so it wasn't anything going on, but even the energy was different. There were no drugs there. There was DBT therapy and mental health counseling, and like, they wanted us to come home and actually possibly not come back.
Yeah.
So I got really
That's very that's
Mhm.
that's rare to hear that out of a correctional facility, especially these days post COVID.
Yeah.
I know a lot of funding was cut during COVID. I mean, I was out during COVID, but just stories that I've heard. Dude, they were cutting funding for programs and for reentry programs, all that shit. When I got down to Lake Erie, so it's nice to hear that there are at least facilities out there that are trying to reintegrate. My reintegration was NeoCap, which was fucking stupid and it sucked. But I got to go to prison then NeoCap,
which is like
it's
I was gonna say, which is like therapy, like rehab, right?
Yeah, you go there instead of getting sentenced to prison, and I looked like a real. I looked wild coming in off the fucking jail bus in all my state blues, walking through NeoCap. Everybody's like, "Oh, we're doing this now." I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm just here because the judge sent me."
Yeah, so that's kind of what it's like coming home from prison to Summit County. We have to go to the Oriena House, which for the girls,
Oh yeah,
they send you to a not locked facility because coming home on TC, one of the conditions is that you're in a non-lockdown facility. So like, there's girls coming in and out that are still using. There's girls in the facilities. Hello?
yeah.
My bad. They keep calling my phone.
No, you're good. Okay, I'll edit it. You're good. Are you good?
Yep. But coming
okay.
home to the Oriena House was similar. It's like inpatient halfway house. Like, it's all IOP counseling and stuff that I like was culture shock to me. Like, I just came from prison. I'm not here to be on that, but there's girls that leave and come back, and like, it was wild. So
Yeah.
I can relate to that. If they just sent me there before prison, I'd have probably never went to prison because that was worse than prison, honestly.
Oh, NeoCap was terrible. We had to sit in a downstairs room for, I think it was 8 to 10 hours a day. You couldn't talk to anybody. You had to have a book to read. You could look at magazines, and then you would have like 2, maybe 3 classes that lasted maybe an hour every day. And between classes, you had to go sit at a table. So coming from prison, where I was able to get up, go to work, go work out a couple times a day, kick it with the homies, like, then going to that where it's basically like, I mean, it was a shock. I'm surprised I actually made it through, but I will tell you, I think prison lightweight like reformed me to the point where I had made up my mind at that point, and I'm like, I'm just finishing out my time. I'm fucking getting through it. I'm going to do whatever they need me to do because I need to get home to my kids. And at that point, I had dried out. It had been a couple years, so I had made the decision. I'm coming home, and I'm not doing bullshit again. So, okay, you come home from prison. Do you have any good juicy jail stories or no?
No, not really. Like, jail. So jail, the scariest thing about jail to me was that it was easy.
Yeah.
Like, had I started going to jail in my 20s, I would have had several numbers. And I can openly and honestly say, like, for people that have been in the streets, we adapt in any situation. Like, one thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm okay. So if that means I have to chameleon whatever and fit in, like, I'm going to be all right. So prison wasn't hard for me. And that was terrifying coming home. Like, wait a minute. Being here in my city to have locked doors is more of a struggle mentally and spiritually than being in prison. Like, that really hit me. So the whole halfway house struggle thing and like the temptation and all of the emotional chaos, because like you said, you go from having a routine, from being around people that you choose to be around, who are like-minded, who are doing the same things, who are in the same programs, like, and then you get put in a situation where half of these girls in my situation didn't even know if they wanted to live tomorrow. Like, it was wild, but I felt like I needed that, because I knew coming home from prison that I wasn't going back, and I had my shit together.
Yeah.
I had a plan. I was gonna make it. And then I went there, and that was real life. That's what real life is like in my city right now. Drugs, homelessness, like that's, so I'm glad to have had that experience. But no juicy prison stories. Prison was,
I don't really have a lot. I mean, I and I'm not going to get into them because I've talked about them on the other episodes, but I have to agree with you. I think it was, and I never looked at it as being scary. I didn't have a hard time when I got locked up. I found a couple like big white boys that weren't linked up with gangs, and all we did was work out, mind our own business, and kick it together. And that was, I got approached by a couple gangs, but it was never anything like force, like you're gonna, like, you know what I mean. So
right,
prison wasn't bad for me, but there was also a lot of shit that went on around me. Like I saw some shit, and I guess you're right. It is scary thinking that I was able to go down and do 2 years, and if I had to go back and do it again, I could probably go back and do it standing on my head. Like
depending on what the reason is for the crime, I will do the time, and I know that. Yeah. Like, there are things that would happen in my life to one of my children or whatever, and absolutely, prison is not, unfortunately, was not the end of the world. It was a necessary experience, but the fear of being able to do it so easily is what made me realize, like, you can't go back to that life, because
you're absolutely right. I've never thought of it like that it is actually scary that I was able to go down there and not, it sucks being away from your kids. And you got a bunch of like emotional baggage you got to fucking offload, and like spiritually you need to get better. And it's hard to do that while you're in there. It's hard and it's easy because it's all you have to focus on, but then there's a lot of bullshit.
There you
go. I never really thought that it was, I never really looked at it as being scary from the standpoint of it was too easy to do that time. I also knew that I wasn't going back. Like you were going to have to catch me up in some straight shit to get me locked back up again.
Mm-hmm.
It's there was something I was going to touch on real quick. I can't remember what it was. No, you brought up, you brought up hustling too while you were in there, and I very clearly remember, like, I had my hustles, and I also very clearly remember the point where I sat down, because like you said, people from the streets, they adapt, and everybody in there, I don't care who you are, they all have a hustle, whether it's a laundry porter, whether it is somebody stealing meat out of the meat and sugar out of the chow hall,
peppers, onions,
everybody's got a hustle in there, but people don't understand you also have to survive. So I never really looked at any of that as I'm still caught up in my own ways. It's a survival mentality. So,
and that's how I looked at it. And then when I sat down, I was like, bro, you really don't need any of this extra stuff to survive. Like, you get 3 meals a day, you have a roof. Like, this is all shit that you still want. Like, you're still feeding needs that you don't have to have. Like, I had a pair of shoes. Like, I didn't need 3 pairs of shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, just all the stuff. Because I was still my ego. And I really had to sit down. Like, you got 3 pairs of state pants. You got 3 state shirts. Bitch, you got somebody to do your laundry twice a week. Like, you got extra shit, but you don't need all this. So it really humbled me to have to recognize that even in prison, like, I'm still trying to have the best or be the best or... Yeah. Like, just sit the fuck down, lady. Just sit down.
That fucking ego, man. That fucking ego will get you every time.
Man. And I never knew that I had an ego like that. I always thought I just, I always thought I had self-love.
Yeah.
Hell no. Hell no. My ego was
cocky does not equate to
crazy.
confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was the same way. I went for years thinking I was the biggest dude on the block, the fucking baddest dude on the, and I'm not shit. I can sit back at 41 years old right now and look myself in the mirror and be like, you're not shit, but you are a good dad. And I could go through like my whole gratitude list and like whatever, but I used to think I was king shit, like just hustling small shit and doing shit and even in prison. I'm like, you didn't do anything in prison. Like, shut up and sit down. Sit in the back row and shut up. Sit with the peanut gallery. Like, you don't need to be up front. So you come home, and you have kids at this point. So what's the custody situation with your kids, and what was that like coming home and working that back out?
So that's crazy that you asked. My oldest daughter turned 18 the month before I got arrested. So she was still at my house. I had money put up. She was maintaining, taking care of business, whatever. And my youngest ended up, with her dad's parents. I took care of all of that from jail before I ever got to prison. I wrote a letter and signed over guardianship, put a date on it with my max out date, like what it could have been, all that. So that was thank God I was fortunate enough to have people that were able to step up, and that my oldest was definitely grown. Prison made my relationship with my youngest daughter better, honestly. My oldest daughter's still angry. She's got resentments from early childhood that she just won't let go. So our relationship is kind of up and down. But my youngest daughter and I were forced to learn to have a verbal communication. Like I said, I was raised in a household of, why are you crying? Don't come downstairs unless you're broken or bleeding. And we don't talk about what goes on in our house or in anybody else's house that you're at. You just don't tell. So I raised my kids very emotionally unattached. Like, I didn't have any understanding that they were crying because they felt some kind of way. Like, I was always that mom that was like, man, what are you crying for? Like, that's life. Suck that shit up. So they never really felt like they had a voice. But then when I went to prison, and my daughter and I have a great relationship at that point even. So I made sure that I talked to her multiple times a day from the county or from prison. Unless I didn't have a number to type into the phone, I was talking to her. But it gave her a voice for the first time. She was able to express things to me and say, Mom, when you did this, it made me feel like that. Or you doing this makes me feel this way. Or I think you could do it better. And we've maintained that since I've come home. And I'm very, very grateful for that because, like I said, now they have voices.
Well, I'll tell you, that is the one thing that I look at, and it's such a beautiful thing once you, like I was talking about restoring relationships and what it'll do for you in society. And I don't understand why prisons don't push that more and why rehab. I mean, I know like rehab facilities do push like mending relationships with your family members and things like that, but I'll tell you, I hang my hat on my relationship with my kids at this point, and it's an ongoing thing where I'm constantly trying to be a better dad, be a better parent, because out of everything, I get the most joy out of my kids. So to be able to know that I went where I went and I was as low as I went, and my kids are doing the big things that my kids are doing. I tell everybody, I don't care if I'm that annoying ass dad up in the at Speedway and you're talking about basketball. Motherfucker, I'm turning around. Guess what my kid's doing? He got a full ride playing basketball. I don't know you, but you're going to hear about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, that's great, though. I know Christopher was nonverbal for a couple years after, and we're not going to get into all that, but he was nonverbal for a couple years, very limited speaking. But Nevaeh, she was a trooper. She pushed through. Her and I have always had a really great relationship since I came home. There were some rocky points when she lived out here with us, but yeah, it's something beautiful to be able to have a relationship with your kids after going through what we've went through. So,
and it's really important to me now because like it's so strange to hear. Like I always thought it was so weird to hear people say like my kid is my best friend, but literally at the end of the day, like my daughter has been put in adult situations. Like she's not an adult, but her thought processes, she recognizes some of my old behaviors when they're happening. Yeah. Like that's my rider. Like that's the person that I know for sure has my back.
Yeah.
Like all the rest of it goes down and everybody has their own self-interest or whatever values they have or whatever could cause a separation in whatever type of relationship. Like, that's my guy. She got my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So I go to her with things and I ask her opinion on life decisions and stuff that I'm doing that will affect her. And that's something that we never had before. I would have just made the decision and said, I'm the mom and it is what it is. But
no, that's awesome. Yeah, Nevaeh, that's how Nevaeh is. Nevaeh, you come at her dad and she's gonna burn your house down and
oh god, yeah, no, we're
murder
not
your whole family. She's fucking
right.
crazy.
She's going to prison. It's over with.
Yeah. All right. So your relationship is on point, and I mean you're building. I mean the little bit that I know you, I know you're working to fix or restore even more so the relationship with your older daughter. And that's you. And I tell people this all the time, and I want to say it one more time. Anybody that's coming home that's trying to get their life in order, you have to understand some of this shit takes time. I've got a really good friend. He did one of my episodes. He was on the Rikers Island episode. Worked with the guy for years. He ended up having a couple kids, and he's like fighting to be in his kids' lives. And there's trauma there. And I always have to remind him because we check in every couple weeks, see how each other's doing. And it's a constant. I always encourage him, and I want to encourage anybody else listening to this. It's trying to rebuild those relationships. You don't fucking give up. You already gave up on your kids once when you went away. You don't get to. That's part of being a parent. Even if that kid tells you to fuck off until they are 40 years old, you constantly leave that door open. You don't get mad. It was your bullshit that got you where you're at. It's your bullshit that you're the reason they are traumatized. You are the reason they don't want to talk to you. It's not their fault.
Right.
And all you can do is continue to push and try and be in their lives. And I want to encourage anybody that's like trying to bridge that gap. You stay the course. Like eventually it'll pay off. I've seen it time and time and time again. As long as you didn't do any like real awful shit to your kids, those kids will come back around at some point.
And the crazy part is, even if you did some real awful shit to your kids are probably still going to want some type of relationship or explanation. Like, the only person that destroys a relationship between a parent and a child is a parent. And it's a conscious
100%.
decision. It's a conscious decision. One 100%. Thing I want to touch on, you mentioned trauma that we cause. So anybody that has like a relationship with their child that's coming home or has been in the streets, I challenge them to ask their child about what they believe was traumatic in their life. My youngest daughter and I have had several lengthy conversations about what she perceived as her trauma in her life. Man, there's shit that she remembered that I'm like, bro, when the fuck did that happen? And then she'll tell me what happened up to it. And every single one of them that didn't seem relevant or big to me were all based on my emotions and my reaction and how my energy made her feel. It was
and again, you're
me scared or angry or that's what caused her trauma. So I challenge us to ask our kids and really understand, like, just because we don't see it as trauma doesn't mean that as a child or another human being it's not traumatic.
No, and your truth isn't their truth. What you perceive, how the situation played out, that's been a big game changer for me, is looking at things from other people's perspectives. Because for the longest time, and as human beings, you are always the center of your own world. You're the center of your own universe. And so the way that you perceive things, 9 times out of 10 is the only way most people look at things. Nobody takes a step back to say, well, how did they feel about that situation? What were their thoughts in that? How did my actions affect them? And what was the outcome of that on their end? Anybody that has kids that that the kids were traumatized from what they did, you have to step back. I hate saying it like this, that your truth isn't their truth, but like they had their own perspective of what happened. Yeah. So you have to listen to them and understand and work through it from their perspective, not yours.
And even if you don't understand it, you've got to give them the space to at least vocalize it. I've told people forever, there's 3 truths in every situation: mine, yours, and God's.
Yeah.
Because the same exact thing is going to happen or be said to us, but your perception is completely different. So
Christopher, my son, has been he'll talk to certain people. He'll talk to my wife, Mary. He'll talk to the women, most women in his life. But when him and I have had conversations throughout the years, I don't get a whole lot from him. It's very hard to like tug things out of him. And I've always left it. And it's funny that we brought this up because I'll get out on the road, and the road is one of the loneliest. Me being a truck driver, it's one of the loneliest places, but it's been one of the best healing opportunities because I get to sit with my bullshit and work through my bullshit. I have called that kid so many times in tears, panicked because of text messages, and I'm like, he's pissed at me. Like, what's going on? I don't understand. I'm calling my mom. I'm like, is Chris upset with me? Like, I'm calling my wife. Like, have you talked to Chris? Are him and I good? And I always have these conversations with him, and I don't always have them, but when they happen, there's been multiple conversations where I'm like, dude, the door's wide open. If you want to tell me I'm a piece of shit or I was a piece of shit and you're hurt from things that I did in the past, I'm like, just say it. Like, I'm not going to yell. I'm not mad.
Please say it. Let me hear it. Make yourself feel better.
And he literally every time he'll laugh at me and he'll be like, you're a good dad. Like, I don't understand why you feel this way. And it's my own bullshit. It's me feeling guilty for all the shit that went on in the past, thinking he's carrying that burden, and he's not. And neither is Nevaeh. But it's super funny because, I always lead the conversation with, I have not yelled at you in like 10, 15 years, dude. Like, the door's open. You can tell me that I'm an asshole. I don't care. I'm not going to be mad. I just want to hear you say it.
I'm probably going to be happy. Just tell me that I fucked
right. Okay. Show some fucking emotions, dude.
Yes. You don't have to. I felt that. Sure.
Okay, so let's get into, we're pushing about 40 minutes right now, and I know you got somewhere to be at 12:30. I want to get into reentry, so and what you're currently working on, because like I said, Building Freedom Ohio has caught my eye with Shantae and everything that you guys were doing. I seeing Lamar give his motivational speeches, watching all of your social media posts. For anybody that doesn't know, reentry, Building Freedom Ohio is basically, it's a reentry program out of, it's statewide.
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to let Monica explain. Because I get Stark County Reentry, Summit County Reentry, Building Freedom, South Street Ministries. To me, they're all just the reentry program.
And that's what I was going to say. In reality, a lot of them are tied together. Reentry is something that BFO does focus on because we understand the need for our people coming home and the struggles. But Building Freedom Ohio is a grassroots organization that is started by felons and those directly impacted, whether it's faith, community, family, friends, and we're changing political stuff. So we're trying to amend and abolish collateral sanctions first. Those are the restrictions that are placed on us once we have given our time, completed our supervision, whether it's parole, probation, whatever. Once you've done all that, there's still 1,100 restrictions placed on us. They're called collateral sanctions. Of those 1,100, those are just the state ones. Of those 1,100, 850 of those apply to employment. So we're trying to...
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because I have a trafficking charge. I literally can't scrub toilets in a hospital, in a doctor's office, anywhere where there may be narcotics, where there's a prescription pad. I don't have any theft charges. But because I was sold drugs, they assume that I don't know. But like, no,
I'll be honest. I was trying to, I've been looking at finding something else aside from truck driving. And they opened a Myers driving school down the road. The only charges I have are burglary, but they are F2 burglaries. And I called Myers. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest. I live right down the street. I could work as much as you guys want me to work. And they were like, do you have felonies? And I said, yes. And they were like, you can't work with kids, dude. Now, apparently Ohio does something where like you can get it pardoned or like get like permission.
It's a CQE.
Yes.
Basically just allows you to be bonded and insured. So what the CQE does, it is a guarantee from the state that if, say you have a burglary charge, okay, so that they give you this CQE, they allow you to be hired. If you go there and you commit a burglary on the property or that's going to come back on the employer in any way, that is the same crime that they allowed you to overcome to get the position. It covers the employer from being responsible. The state will be responsible for any charges or any financial. So it's basically just another insurance for them. but it is available for some crimes. But so what Building Freedom Ohio is doing right now, like I said, we're amending and trying to abolish some of the collateral sanctions. We're also pushing the FILM Act, which is the Felony Impacted Liberation Movement. We are trying to get the GROW Act passed, which Ohio is one. There are 12 other states that currently have some type of clean slate initiative.
So explain real quick what the GROW Act and the felony, what did you call it? Felony liberate?
The Felony Impacted.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of BFO chapters trying to organize faith, family, friends, anybody that's been directly or indirectly impacted, or businesses. I've been talking to people that own businesses. The GROW Act, once it passes, is going to expunge and seal 1.78 million criminal records in the state of Ohio. That's going to immediately allow 1.78 million people to return to work with no type of collateral sanction. So all those 1,100 restrictions that I just said are out the window for them. They don't have records anymore. It starts, felony 3s are at the discretion of the judge. Felony 4s and 5s, as long as they're non-violent or a crime against any protected class, or like a sex crime, murder, that type of shit, you know.
Yeah.
So no violent, no dangerous, but drug possession, theft, like all the stuff that is considered petty will just be sealed and expunged, and your record will be cleared. And you'll be
that's awesome. And I will give you my hat is off to people like you and Shantae and Lamar, and because when we did our little interview about the march down at the State House 2 weeks ago, most of the people that are working on this, it's not going to affect their record. A lot of them there are, but I mean, a lot of the people that are like really digging their heels in and trying to make this thing work are none of us that were on that interview 2 weeks ago. It's not going to help any one of us, but
none
you guys
of
are
us
still,
that were at the State House standing on those steps are going to be impacted by it either. But
and that's what I love about it. And Lamar said it best when he was on here. You know, he said it's time that everybody unites. He said, and unfortunately, as felons, we are socially. A lot of us are not social creatures. We've been told we're not worth anything. We've listened to it. We've adapted to. We are not worth being anything in society. We're not. We can't have anything in society. So that bond, once you come outside of prison and you have something in common with those people, it kind of separates. A, because you're not allowed to hang out with other felons once you're out if you're still on parole or probation, and B,
meetings and all these programs and all these classes with all other felons.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I loved when Lamar said, you know, it's time everybody comes together. It's time everybody gets involved and starts putting their foot down and saying, this isn't fair that we made a mistake and now we have to serve a lifelong sentence. It's there's for my crimes, for some crimes, I 100% agree. You touch a fucking kid, you should carry that your entire life because you're sick. You're going to fucking do it again. And there's, shit like that. I understand. A lot of these other ones, trafficking in marijuana, you got guys that are still locked up doing life sentences for fucking trafficking marijuana. And it's fucking legal throughout almost like half the United States.
So you're a dog lover. Your dog is with you all the time. One of the collateral sanctions in Ohio is that as a felon, you are not allowed, as a felon on supervision, you are not allowed to own a dog that is 12 weeks or older who has not been spayed or neutered, that you did not own prior to your commission of whatever crime you were convicted of. Yep.
Yeah, that's stupid as fuck. And for any of you assholes in probation or whatever watching, I had my dog long after. Don't come for me. I'm not on supervision. I'll fight you.
My parole
that dog means more to me than half my family members.
I'm trying to get a dog.
What's that?
But that's great. I said, I asked my parole officer because this is what I do. So I'm very aware of these 1,100 extra laws you want me to follow, lady. So I'm like, hey, can I get a dog? And she's like, I don't care. And I'm like, shit, you could really come here and put me back in prison if you were in a bad mood. She's like, yeah, I know. We don't do that. We don't use that one too much. And then proceeded to tell me of a situation where they needed to go in someone's house because they thought he had shit going on. and they knew that there was a dog there that wasn't supposed to be there. So they did use that. Like,
Yeah.
it's so wild to me that literally somebody could be in a bad mood and just be like, oh yeah, you have a new dog. Fuck it. You're going back to jail today. Like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. I can understand it. If you have the one that I saw was on pit bulls, I think it was, and it was a specific law in Ohio about owning a pit bull while you're on probation or parole. Or an aggressive breed. Let's just call it an aggressive breed, because I got to be honest, my pit bull is the biggest anxiety.
I was going to say my
baby.
bullies are the biggest babies I've ever seen in my life.
So we could call it just aggressive breeds, but I can understand it from a law enforcement and a probation officer standpoint, where they don't want to be showing up for a home visitor. They don't want to get called to handle some shit, and now you got to shoot a fucking dog. Like, I get it. But also,
I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're criminals. We're going to do what the fuck we're going to do anyway. If I want to have a dog, So I like, maybe for like a dog fighting situation, I don't know. I just don't feel like it should be a collateral sanction across the state for everybody with a felony conviction. If you have like a dog fighting crime or a crime against animals, okay, cool. Like, you probably shouldn't be allowed to have a dog. Like, okay, I get it. But I had my dogs that I was making money on selling them and breeding them and showing them before I ever went to prison. Like, that would be wild for you to say I can't come home and make money legally doing something that I know how to do, that I've already done.
Yeah.
Selling bullies is good fucking money. And my little one, she's got like purple ribbons. Like, so it's just wild to me that they still have that much control over somebody's life, over what kind of dog you have or how old it is. Like, that's wild.
Yeah,
but you're right. Some people do need restrictions. I am absolutely not going to say we're going to get rid of all collateral sanctions, because there are some bad people in the fucking world. And there are some people that need restrictions forever, period. And I agree with that.
Yeah, the point I'm at in my life, I understand why some of these laws are in place. I can at least sit back and justify and understand why they don't want certain people owning aggressive breeds. I can understand why they don't want certain people owning firearms. I can understand why they don't want certain people to have certain jobs. But also, at what point do we say, and I've said this before, I know tons of fucking criminals who have never been caught that get to do all that shit on a daily basis. The world is ridden with fucking assholes. So what? Because I was a shitty criminal and I got caught, now you get to tell me I don't get to do these fucking things? You got teachers working in fucking schools, fucking teenage kids. But I'm the asshole. It's fucking wild, man. It's fucking wild
as fuck. It's wild as fuck.
And that's why I love what you guys are doing, Monica. That's why I have been, like I said, I've been talking to Shantae. I know Lamar's super busy. I kind of keep up with him on Facebook, but I always see your stuff. I want to help in whatever
you're helping
aspect
right
that I can. I know. But there does come a point in time where you have to say, we can't hand out life sentences to people who are 13 years. 13 years I have been home without a seatbelt ticket. You haven't caught me jaywalking. You haven't caught me doing a fucking thing. You know why? Because I don't fucking do it anymore.
Every fucking decision and every single thing you do with the consequence of I might end up back in trouble.
100%. And I'm not going back. I made that decision, and it's just wild. And I know a lot of other people who have been out for years, and they still suffer the consequences of having that felony. So yeah, there's definitely changes that need made, and I love what you guys are doing. Let me ask real quick. So you're the onboarding chair for the Akron Canton chapter of Building Freedom, Ohio. You are also the reentry liaison for South Street Ministries. What kind of people can, first off, what kind of people can utilize these services? Like, what services are you providing at both of these, or especially at South Street?
At South Street is actually like a resource center. They've got sober housing, they've got meetings, whatever you need. If they don't offer it there, oh my God, they've got somebody where they can send you to do that. On Tuesdays at 4:00, Lamar and I actually do a peer-to-peer support reentry meeting. Reentry for us is not just coming home from incarceration. Reentry is rehabilitation, homelessness, incarceration, halfway house, county jail, like anything that's taking you out of society where you need to reacclimate yourself with yourself and with other people, whether it's resources or just humans, someone to support you. So South Street is like an all inclusive. They've got all the stuff. And the reentry meeting on Tuesday is fire. It's between 50 and 70 people. They feed you at the end. Awesome. And it's kind of like therapy. Like Lamar gets up there, he talks about what's going on. We talk about BFO. We talk about how we can make our community better, because at the end of the day, we're all just community members who want to be regular citizens.
Yeah.
We just want to be normal people.
100%. And you want to be able to, make choices, make changes, you want to have opportunities. I could sit here and preach all day. The system's just built. Once you catch a felony, it's built to keep you down. We're not going to go through this whole fucking.
I was going to say we can do a whole 2 hours on that if you want to come back later. But
the main thing in all this is everybody wants to rehabilitate people back into society. So if your goal is to rehabilitate people back into society, why the fuck do you put so many sanctions on nonviolent offenders, on people that made a stupid choice, people that I'll be completely honest, and there's people that disagree with me. After 13 years, I should be able to have my fucking felonies completely expunged. I didn't hurt anybody. There was nothing violent. There was nothing aggravated. I paid my time. Why the fuck can't I get my shit expunged? And there's thousands, millions, I don't even know the number of people out there that have non-violent, non-aggravated felonies that just serve the life sentence. And they deserve to be happy. And that's what they're hindering us from doing, is being able to work and create lifestyles that are productive, happy, successful.
Yep. And then they want to know why we end up back in the streets doing illegal things, because we're not given the opportunity for equality of life to even be equal with other people.
Yeah. You have roadblocked and railroaded us at every crossroad.
Yep. So the GROW Act, that's what it's actually doing. Like those 1.78 million records are all those low-level non-violent felonies and misdemeanors. So like people with misdemeanor theft charges literally face the same collateral sanctions and same restrictions as somebody with a felony, because once you have a theft, you're that guy. Like, so it's a step in the right direction. We can't go in asking.
Yeah, it's not even collateral sanctions though as well. And this is I'm gonna have a real quick like coming to Jesus moment with people too. So it's more so once that's on your arrest record, and arrest records are such shit also, because I have literally like 10 pages of shit that I was never convicted of.
Absolutely.
Now, was I doing sketchy shit? Yes. But why in the fuck is my arrest record available to the public? If there's one record that should be available to the public, it should be my conviction record.
Convictions, and that's it.
But those aren't available to the fucking, you can go on and search for it and find out I was convicted, but then you're going to get the whole 10-page book of Chris Tackett's fucking life that makes me look like a straight piece of shit. And I got to be honest, at this point in my life, I'm not a piece of shit.
I might have been a piece of shit. Oh, I might have been. That piece of shit is what I'm in recovery from, for sure.
Yeah. But then you go in a job interview, and I'll tell you, I was an operations manager for like 7 years. I did the hiring and firing at my last job. Mm-hmm. I would never run a background check because that cost money. These people would come in, I would ask them if they had felonies, and because I've been through the system, I already know I can go in and look up your record just by your name, date of birth, all the information you put on the application. So I'm literally screening everybody as they come in. And even me being a felon, I extended I have employees that still reach out to me today, and they're like, thank you for giving me another, because I was always on board with hiring the felons. I'm like, they're going to work. They have to work.
Absolutely.
And most of them that I hired turned out to be supervisors or great employees that are still down there. People need to give people another fucking chance. Like, I understand. I'll be honest. The reason I was looking up records was making sure that you weren't like diddling kids or had like murder charges or aggressive charges, things like that.
I'm not even going to lie. Like, there's some murder charges that I believe should be overlooked. Like, if you were under a certain age, I don't believe that a man, quote, man, who shot somebody at 20 in a heated situation should suffer for the rest of his life for that. Like, you're not a man. First of all, you don't understand consequences. You have no concept of what really just happened. Like, we're not mature at that point. Like, yes, are there consequences? Abso-fucking-lutely. Like, for sure. But when you come home, we'll just use Lamar. Lamar has murder charges. When you come home and you're doing the shit that he's doing and changing and touching the amount of lives that he touches, like, that's my mentor. If it wasn't for Lamar, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at. Like, he's taught me so much and seen so much in me that I knew was there. I just didn't know how to find, and given me opportunities and places that I would have never seen myself doing. If a man who's doing that for his community can't be fully restored and be allowed to go into the schools and teach how to be men to young men coming up, like, what the fuck are we doing? We're guaranteeing that our kids end up, like, it's so, the whole system.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it always throws me for a fucking loop that I've been asked that I have some friends that are teachers, and they have asked me to come down and speak at the schools, and they've taken it in front of the principals and things like that, the superintendents, the school boards, and I can't go in. And I get it. Like, what? It's a fucking rule, and I have to follow it. So, but it's wild because you have people like Lamar, like you, like me, who literally lived the bullshit. Yeah. Like, we lived the bullshit and we fought our way from the fucking gutter. But you would rather have some guy that, like, wrote a book about, I don't fucking know, like, his dog got run over and he overcame adversity. Like, get the fuck out of here. I don't know. It's wild. That's my rant. Sorry to anybody that had a dog.
That's real, though. Like, that's real. And especially in the communities where we live, like, these kids are not relating to the people that are in the schools. Like, if you want to change some lives,
they're relating to the drug.
The kids that they can relate to, that they're going to be able to understand and have a real conversation with. Yeah, I got a whole, I feel some type of way about what we're doing to our kids and what we're allowing the system to do to our kids.
Yeah. No, it's gross. That's why you see all these private schools popping up and all these, like, charter schools, because people don't want to send their kids to public school anymore.
Causing them to have separation. Now you go to a school because your parents have more money than mine, so you're better than me. But we live on the same block.
Well, I don't look at it as that. Dude, I live in one of the best school districts in fucking Ohio, and I pulled my kid out and sent him to St. Thomas Aquinas. Not because I had the money to do it. It was he had better opportunities to go down there. You know, I didn't want to pay that fucking money for him to go there. It's not always that, but I know there's a lot of situations where people don't want their kids brought up. And I've got friends out in Medina right now. They're going to pay fucking, I think it's like $8,000 a year to send both of their kids to a private school. And the only reason is they just don't want them in public school. And I don't fucking blame them, dude. Public school is fucking nuts right now. I took my child out of public schools, but I also know how this charter system works, and it causes issues in the community where I live. Well, you're in Akron though, and that is it is an issue, and they don't do that out here. But yeah, I know that Dick Goddard like scholarship or whatever it is, or the Yep. All right. Well, listen, we're pushing up on an hour, pushing up on 12:30. I know you said you got stuff to do, so why don't you, real quick before we're off here, let everybody know, anybody struggling that needs help with finding housing, reentry, maybe finding a job, anybody that wants to attend the weekly support group for reentry. Why don't you real quick shout out the address, shout out the name of the church, and then let people know where they can find you, where they can reach you. So the address for the reentry support meeting on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. is 798 Grant Street. It's at the Front Porch Cafe. You can reach me on social media, Monica Moening, Moening. That's my Facebook, my TikTok, Instagram, Snap are all BFO_Monica. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Awesome. Monica, I seriously appreciate you coming on. I know it took me a while to get you on here, but thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I know it was kind of a hurdle for you. You were a little nervous, and I know Shantae jumped your ass for it, but that's okay. That's good. Hey, you need people like that in your life, but you have a good story, and what you guys are doing is fucking amazing. That's what I was going to say. So do you want to like come back and do another one when we actually talk about like what BFO's got going on and we get to the Yeah, so I've reached out to I need to call Shantae back because I want to start doing like discussion meetings where maybe I have like you, Shantae, and Lamar on, and we can all sit and have a conversation, or even if it's just me and maybe like two of you, so things don't get like chaotic and hectic. No, it's in the works. I have a couple other guys that I've talked to throughout the last couple months that are all on board with it. It's literally just I've had like 3 of those scheduled, and at the last minute, somebody's always got something going on, and it's a lot for me to be on the road and pull up topics and pull up like a punch sheet for people to kind of follow and put all that together. So we're working on it. But yeah,
Okay.
that's what I kind of want to take this in that direction and maybe
Okay.
go from there. So no, absolutely. We can have you back on whenever. And again, thank you so much for coming on here. You have a great story. I love watching you guys and watching what you guys are doing. So appreciate you. Appreciate everything you're doing. Everybody, once again,
for spreading the message.
Hey, anything I can do to help. I literally I've told all you guys, if you have even an idea, shoot it to me. You need help putting a studio together, you need anything, I'm at your disposal. So
okay, so I'll definitely be in touch because there's some things coming up that you could definitely use a video guy for and like some media. So for sure I'll be in touch. Okay.
All right, everybody, we are going to check out of here. Once again, I want to encourage each and every one of you to head over to the Jungle Cast page on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave some comments. Once again, all that does is help push us up in the feed and spread the message to others, which is why we are here. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.